Let's turn the volume up. Hi, Danville. Alan Schilch here, Chief of Police for the town, and we are 10-8 in service, which means we're here to make people's lives better by safeguarding lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve. This is a live show, so if you have questions or concerns or comments, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I'm going to monitor both Facebook and YouTube. And so live during the show, if you want your question answered, go ahead and ask it on the chat, and I'll get to it during the show. Those that I can't get to during the show, I'll make sure I get to afterwards. All right, so we're going to cover, this is week 2 of our emergency preparedness, and we're really focusing on wildfire. I don't know about all of you, but I'm looking out my window right now, and it is green, and it is beautiful. And when I was riding my bike on the Iron Horse Trail to work today, the grass was like, in some areas, 4 and 5 feet tall. I mean, it is really, really growing. All that means that there is going to be a significant amount of fuel for our summer and fall time. So this is the time to prepare. This is the time where you cut the weeds back and do all that stuff. This is when you devise your plan. This is when you print out those guides that we talk about all the time. So let's take a look at some of those. And then for the final thought, and I want to pose the question here. Each year we post a budget. And on our budget, this is available online. You can always look at it, and you can see what parts of the budget for specifically the police department, but what do we spend money on and in what categories? And then you can also see what our revenues are, where we actually take money in, which it's mostly taxes. I'll give you the big clue on that one. But when it comes to tickets, today at the final thought, we're going to talk about the 3 E's of traffic safety, and essentially why is it that police officers, why do we even write traffic citations? And so what I want you to do is I want you to put what percentage of the budget, and our budget last year was about $10 million for just the police department. What percentage of that budget do we take revenue in from writing traffic citations? So if you have a guess, go ahead and throw it in the chat. I'm really interested to see what you all think. And even if you're not watching it live, go ahead, because I'm not going to reveal it till the very end of the show. So throw your guess in there, and let's see where it goes. As always, here's what I want you to do. Download that FEMA All Hazards Checklist. This is the perfect time to do it. This will allow you to be prepared. Download it. It has all kinds of stuff. Right now, we're highlighting wildfires, I think, for obvious reasons, but there's earthquakes, pandemics, there's radiological incidents, there's all kinds of things that you may never think about. But if you just took the time and viewed this, give it 15 minutes, look at it, make some preparatory steps, and then just put it in a drawer. But this will allow you to be prepared. And so here's a good look at what they do for a wildfire. There's a lot more information in there, but this is just an infographic from that book. And it has some information on, how they're caused and what you need to do should one occur. In addition, we want you to download the Contra Costa County Residents Guide to Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation. That is the book that we're covering over the next 5 to 6 weeks. We also want you to log in and sign up for the community warning system alerts. Also, if you haven't already, please sign up for the NICSA alerts. We did have a traffic accident out on Camino Tasajera earlier today, kind of during the commute hour, the school commute hour. If we were to close that road for a little longer, we were going to put something out on NICSA that says, hey, this road is closed. If it's 20, 30 minutes or 10 or 20 minutes and we can get it back open, usually we'll just get it back open. If we're going to have to close a road for an hour because there's debris and vehicles or maybe a crime scene, we're going to put it out there and let you know. And that's a good way to know so that you can divert your plans and make new plans. All right. So let's look at traffic for the week, and then we'll go into crime for the week. All right, so communitycrimeapp.com, this is where you can download this information yourself, and you can see what is going on in your neighborhood. You can set up alerts for your neighborhood, and in addition to that, you can also get sexual offender registry information direct from this site. So it's a really good one-stop shop to see from a crime enforcement standpoint what is actually happening in your neighborhood. Okay, so last week, if you remember, we had more traffic accidents than we had crime. And we've kind of flipped it this week. So on the 18th, we had a non-injury collision on Camino Tasajera and Tasajera Lane. So that was out east there. So that was the only one we had. So let's look at crime. So on the 17th through the 23rd, we had a total of 1 burglary. We had 5 thefts. And I threw another little nugget in there. I don't highlight all of the arrests that we make, but I did highlight one on the 23rd, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. On the 19th, there was a theft of property from a locked vehicle at Hat McGee Park. And this is always the reminder for parks. This was very typical for what we see. It looks like the person went to the park and tried to conceal their property, and they tried to do it underneath a coat. Well, if it's under a coat or there's something bulky or a gym bag with dirty clothes in it, the bad guys, they don't know what's actually in it, but they know it's, maybe being concealed on the floorboard or maybe in the back of an SUV, that sort of thing. And so they will take it. And so that was the case here. So, excuse me. Our recommendation is always to put that stuff in a place where it can't be seen at all. All right, continuing on. On the 20th, we had a theft of a wallet from a purse while the victim shopped at Costco. And we've covered this before. This is not an uncommon way. We've seen it inside restaurants where the purse is over the back of the seat. We've seen it from inside the shopping carts. And I'll tell you, I shop at Costco, I shop at Lunardi's and Lucky's and CVS and Walgreens, all the typical stores that you'd see here. And without a doubt, many, many times when I go there, I would say the majority of times I go there, there is a purse, a backpack, something in that kind of baby area. I call it the egg area. It's where I put all my eggs. There's something in there and someone's attention is diverted. And really, if you have it in there, here's what you should think is that someone is watching you, they're following you, and what they're doing is they're waiting for you to divert your attention. And all you have to do is divert it for 5 seconds. 5 seconds over here, and they're going to just reach in your purse and take it, and you'll never see it. You'll never know it. And so what we recommend is, one, don't leave your purse in there. If you can keep it over your shoulder, please keep it over your shoulder. If you can avoid bringing it in altogether, just don't bring it in, right? And if you have to leave it in the cart, make sure all the zippers are zipped, make sure everything is locked up. And we also recommend if you can get like one of those little carabiner things, the little things that you clip like a water bottle onto a backpack, those sort of things, take that and you can hook it to the cart so they don't just take your whole purse. But we saw, and I played it maybe 6 months ago in Costco, where someone had their wallet taken, and these were professional thieves, very coordinated and professional thieves working in tandem, where they followed the lady around and they actually unzipped her bag from behind and were able to go in and reach in and take her wallet. So really be vigilant out there. It should not happen. It's not to shame a victim, because we should be able to walk around with purses, wallets, leave doors unlocked, all of that. What I'm trying to do is explain how these thieves work, and so that if you choose to take steps to help prevent it, you can do that. All right, on the 20th, we had an embezzlement of property from Chevron gas station on Crow Canyon Road. And then we had, on the 22nd, we had a theft of property from inside the home. And I just want to explain the difference, because we'll get to it here in a second. But the difference between a theft from inside the home and a burglary. Now, I think it's easiest. A theft is when property is taken and there's no intent to give it back. They want to permanently deprive the person of that property. A burglary occurs, and a burglary is an intent crime where the intent is entering a structure, and that's 3 walls and a roof. So any structure, so your home qualifies. Entering a structure with the intent to commit any theft, so taking property, or felony. So it could be for like a felony battery or more serious crimes. Sometimes we'll get reported where maybe there's workers that are in a house, or people, maybe the babysitter, people that already are in the house and they take something. And so that's why not necessarily every theft from a home is a burglary. So at the end of the year, when we're counting up our stats and we say, 26 homes were broken into last year, this one wouldn't really count for that. All right. So that's the difference between the theft from a home and a burglary of a home. On the 23rd, we had a theft of property from a Costco. The alert loss prevention folks were on top of it, and were actually able to recover all of the property as the person fled. On the 23rd, we had a theft of property from a business on East Prospect after hours. That is a commercial burglary, because the person entered when it was closed with the intent to steal property. Now, on the 23rd, we had a arrest of a person after an ALPR notification. So we don't highlight all of these, and I just want to cover it because I think it's important that you know that the systems that we have in place, they do help from a prevention standpoint and an apprehension. And we can never totally predict what someone's going to do. But in this particular case, there was a car that came into town. It was stolen, comes into town at 3 a.m, right? The person has no business being here. Our officers are alerted. They go to the area where the car was seen coming into town, and they ultimately stop the driver, arrest the driver for being in possession of that stolen car. They recover the car, return it to the owner, and then cart the suspect off to jail. Now, we can make a logical assumption that maybe that person was in town shopping to do harm to you, right? That's not outside of the norm for what we see. We see people using stolen cars, stolen plates to come into town and break into your homes, your cars, your businesses. So that is what we see. So this is a good example of one. We were actually able to apprehend someone and recover someone's property. So there's the apprehension side of things. But really the one I'm most happy about is the prevention, right? This camera was there. These hardworking officers were there. They swarmed the area and they were able to get this person before they victimized anyone in town. And so that is a huge, huge win. And I think it's actually a very good segue into traffic. So a lot of times we'll get visitors. They'll come in and they'll do a tour. Sometimes it's like a Boy Scout or a Cub Scout or a Girl Scout troop, or maybe it's a school that comes by, or we go out to the schools. And I've repeated this over and over again, but I always say to the kids, the best day in law enforcement is when we make no arrests, we write no tickets. And the reason is in order for us to arrest someone else, presumably an innocent person, has to be a victim of a crime. In order for us to go out and write a ticket, someone has to be driving in such a way that creates a condition that could lead to accidents. And so we want to make sure that we work the traffic according to that. But before we get on to the final thought, let me cover our week 2 of emergency prep, and that has to do with having a plan. As we go through this, I want you to think, do you have a plan? And I want you to really think about your situation. Are you home alone? Are you fully capable of opening your garage by yourself if the power is out? Do you have family members with you that maybe have some mobility issues? Do you have multiple ways out of your home? Typically, I use my garage. I go through my garage all the time. What if that is blocked by a fire or maybe something fell over? Can I get out another way? Do I have a third exit, maybe even a fourth exit? Will that window work? Can I even climb out of that window? How do I communicate this with other people? Is my home, am I, and is my family prepared? Do we have a plan? So here's some things to consider is if there is an issue in your community or specifically to your home, where are you actually going to go? Do you have a family member nearby? Do you have, maybe you have a second house. Maybe you're going to go there. But how are you actually going to get there? And so have that consideration, and that has to do with where do you park your car? And this sounds a little silly, but not all of us can drive cars. And so do you have the transportation that you need to get to where you need to go? Maybe you work with your neighbors and share vehicles and things like that. But in your immediate home, you want to make sure that you have multiple escape routes. And we get this question all the time. We have, if you go down Camino Tasajara, we have some of the most beautiful neighborhoods as you go down Camino Tasajara. But a lot of them have one, maybe just 2 ways in. And I'm thinking of like Old Blackhawk Road as an example. And we get the question from neighbors in that community, not all the time, but kind of as the fire season hits, hey, if there's a fire and it's blocking Camino Tasajara and Old Blackhawk, is there a secondary route out? Now, I would say that what you need to do is you need to look at the map for your neighborhood, because typically there's going to be like a fire trail or some other access point. But also, if you live in an area that may be tougher to get in and out of, then maybe the consideration is if there's an evacuation warning in place, maybe that's your signal to go. Maybe you don't wait for the evacuation order to hit, right? Fires typically, they can spread very quickly, but it's not like an earthquake where everything is shaking all at once. A large area doesn't just ignite at once. So if you live in an area where it's tougher to get out of, you may want to plan for an earlier exit. My neighborhood, I'm pretty close to the freeway. I'm down by Osage Park. So there's lots of ways in and out of that neighborhood. So I could probably give a little bit more time before I go. But even so, if I've got special needs, if I've got family members that have medication needs, if I've got family members with mobility, if I have to go to a neighbor's house or a family member that lives close by and evacuate them, I might have to start adding time to my clock and doing it early. Think about when you went to work, and if you have kids, think about when you went to work and it was just you. You could probably get up at 5 o'clock and be to work by 7:30, no problem. start throwing kids in the mix and school and all this. And the time that you have to wake up backs way down. Sometimes you might be getting up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, getting your workout in, getting the kids ready, making breakfast, getting them dressed, getting them off to school. Then you're going to work. And so everybody's situation is different. And that's why we ask people, please look at your situation. How are you going to get information? So we know that we use Nixle. We know that we use CWS alerts. We're going to have a stay connected section in a later week, and we're going to cover all of this. So if you have questions on that, we're going to cover it. How are you going to contact loved ones? And we do talk about this. If it's an emergency and you're trying to call, you may not get through. And there may be 2 issues for that. One, the tower that you're trying to call from could be damaged, could be burned down. There could be, if it's an earthquake that prompted this fire, there could be something wrong with the transmission lines. So it just may not work altogether. So you may have to travel a distance to get there. The other is it may just be that there's so many people trying to use the system at once that there is no line available. So a phone call is very difficult. So we say try to send the text message, because if you send the text message, you can keep retrying as the signal comes in, and it doesn't take much data to send that little packet of information and get it to one of your loved ones. And what you want to tell them is, I'm okay, and where you're going and when you plan on getting there. All right. And so that way they know when to expect you and where you're going. So should you go missing, they have an idea of where you started from and where you're heading to. All right. More on that. What are you going to bring with you? This is going to come into how do you prepare with your go bag, and we'll talk about that in one of the other updates for the week. And then this is one that is, I know this is a struggle for some of us, but make sure you've got working smoke detectors and fire extinguishers and those things, because if it's a local fire just in your house, you may be able to put it out. If it's the fire in the kitchen, you may be able to put it out before it gets bad. And we've seen it where some of the homes that live next to open spaces have actually had garage fires, have had kitchen fires, chimney fires that started out really small and probably manageable if there was a capable person with the equipment and the tools to put it out, could have just maybe sprayed it with an extinguisher that ended up taking a whole hillside. And so if you can knock that fire down early, that's good. It may be something in your backyard that starts fire. So we recommend having those tools ready. Now, this is something that often goes overlooked when we talk about emergency preparedness, but is very important because it has to do with your animals. And if you're trying to leave and we have horses in town, and you've got horses and dogs and cats and lizards and turtles, and you've got those pets, what is your plan for your pets? And I'll tell you that with the cats especially, dogs, at least my dog will follow me. It'll stay close by. I can actually just give it a little dog biscuit, and I own him. Anywhere I'm going, he's going. Cats, sometimes they like to do their own thing, maybe go to corners of the house. So if it comes to the point where we're maybe moving to an evacuation recommendation or warning, right? Now it's like, okay, now we should be finding our go bag, our preparation food, getting our vehicle out and ready. Before you do all that, if you've got your cat there, maybe stick your cat in a bathroom real quick. Just leave them there. That way it's a very small area to search. You'll know where your cat is. So isolate your animals right away. Keep them in your plan, and then start working on everything else. That way, when you want to go, you're not going to spend hours looking for your cat. The microchip your animals, that's just good to do all the time. We actually have, courtesy of our animal services for the county, we actually have one of those scanners here. So if we were to find animals, we could actually scan those animals and identify who the owners are. And that's not uncommon after these disasters to have dogs going around. They don't have collars and have other animals out there. And having photos, I think everybody's got those now. That's kind of an old bullet point for these slides, but everybody with a smartphone seems to have about 1,000 pictures of their dog doing different things. And then how will you transport your animal? Now, I'll tell you, my dog right now, we can just chuck him in the back of the car. He's good to go. He's very good at traveling. We had another dog, though, that would just really have some anxiety, really trouble going. So maybe get with your vet now. Don't wait for the issue. Get with your vet now and see if there's something that you can do that can help safe travel with your animal. Maybe it's something as just having their favorite treat in there, but figure out how you're going to travel with your dog, because there's nothing worse than if your dog really starts to have some anxiety and you're trying to get out. That's one more thing that you really don't want to be worrying about. All right. So I'm going to check the comments here now. So we did ask at the top, how much of our budget do you think is funded through writing citations. And I'm looking here. Debbie says 5%. John says 10%. Sue says 12. And then John says, can you discuss the tickets being issued on Sycamore Elementary utilizing the bike lane for kids drop? Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Okay. So Claire says the police's duty, and I'm going to hit this one right now. Claire says the police's duty to serve the public does not give them the right to coerce or threaten a civilian to sign the citation. The police who stopped me said that he'd drag me out of my car and put me in jail if I don't sign the citation right away. So Claire, it sounds like you have a very specific complaint. And so I would just encourage you, if you could do me a favor, just send me a direct message or I'll direct message you. If you give me your phone number, I'd love to call you after the show and we can talk about it and go over that. But I will say this, when it comes to signing a citation, it's one of those parts of the process that when the officer is going to give you a citation, kind of the common speech is it's not an admission of guilt. It's just acknowledging that you've received the citation. And on the back of the citation, it has how you can take care of it. So if you want to contest the citation, pay it, or whatever you'd like to do, there's the option there. So Claire, I'd appreciate an opportunity to speak with you directly. And then Catherine says, related to the Sycamore tickets, can you please address where cars should be waiting on Camino Tasajara when they approach Alta Vista Way and the bike lane between Alta Vista and Holbrook? Where is it legal to drive in the bike lane on school days between 7:45 and 8:30? Okay. And then happened to me in line at Starbucks at San Ramon, waiting for my beverage for Sue. And then John talks about the signs on the times. The times are outdated from pre-COVID, school bell schedules and whatnot. Okay, so let me do this. So there's a specific problem there. Let me cover how we do the citations and the budget part of it, and then we're going to jump right into that specific issue on Camino Tasajara and Sycamore School, because I think some of that might be explained generally with what I'm going to talk about, and then we can talk about it specifically. All right, so why do we write tickets? And the answer really is to prevent collisions and accidents. I ask the question because we tend to get the statement that, oh, you're writing these tickets on Camino Ramon or Camino Tasajara or downtown on Harts because you need to fund your budget. And that's not true. So it's interesting. I maybe baited all of you with that question because I said what percentage, when in reality it's a fraction of a percent. It's certainly not 10 or 12 or even 5. I think at one point when our budget was maybe 6 million, it was at about 3.5%. We're now less than that. We're at about 0.5% of our budget comes from writing tickets. We don't get that much money for it. Now the program itself, our traffic unit, represents about 10% of the budget, and that's 3 officers and a sergeant, and then the equipment that goes with it. So knowing that it's not a revenue generator, it's simply to keep people safe. How is it that we best accomplish that? Because I'll be honest, it's not with tickets. Like if we're out writing tickets a lot, and I think John and Claire and Catherine are all kind of recognizing that going out and simply writing tickets doesn't solve the problem. And there's actually good questions in there. And before I get into this, I want you to kind of think about this as well. Knowing that we cannot block the road and we can't block the bike lane, and you see that area a lot more than I do, admittedly. My kids don't go to Sycamore School. We go to a different school. In fact, I'm at Charlotte Wood and San Ramon High. So there's a different set of traffic problems there, unique to those schools. So you are the experts of this school. How about you do this? You throw in a recommendation for what you think would be a solution. Where should the cars go? How should the drop-off work at Sycamore Valley Elementary? And let me cover this. The reason I asked you that question is the way with it we keep the town safe from a traffic standpoint is by using the 3 E's of traffic enforcement. And if we look at it, it's engineering, education, and enforcement. And I would say it's heavily weighted in that order, meaning that the biggest reason Danville is so safe and why our accident rate is so low is due to the engineering solutions that we have in place. The roads were essentially given to us when the town incorporated. And the town, ever since then, has tried very hard to work with transportation engineers to design and plan these roads in such a way that makes them either safe if we're expanding, or take the existing roadways that we have and make them as safe as we possibly can. That doesn't mean that that the roads are 100% safe. It means that they continue to strive to make them safer. And I think the proof is in the number of collisions that we have, because they have continued to be reduced. I think in the last 5 years, we've seen the lowest collision rate in the last 20 to 30 years. And if you ever want to find out like long-term stats on that, go to my Chiefs page on the Danville website, and you can download the annual report. In this annual report, every year I go over what the traffic stats look like, and they're incredibly low, and they continue to be low. So if you look, and this is just since 2003, this is the actual chart for it. They continue to trend down, lower and lower and lower. You can see during the pandemic, clearly there was a big negative spike, but that was mostly due to the fact that there was a lot less traffic out on the road. But we're still trending in a very positive, as in negative direction. So I want to give you an example. So if you are familiar with San Ramon Valley High School and that portion of Danville Boulevard that sits in front of it, one of the engineering ideas, and engineering ideas can be striping, it can be raised portions of the roadway, it could be simply designing for pickup or drop off at a school. It could be working with the school to design that drop off or pickup to maybe use more of the real estate on the campus. And I'll highlight one of our local schools that does just a phenomenal job at that. But I want to show you a very simple example of how we were able to reduce speeds in an area and drive our collision rate down for a section of roadway. And that's with what's called a road diet. And this is a good example of an engineering solution. So if you look to the left, this is about 2015, 2014. That is what Danville Boulevard looked. And we're looking south into the northbound lane. So the school is off to our right. And if you look to the right, the picture on the right, that is about the same area. And that is what it looks like essentially today. And the red arrow is pointing to a crosshatch design that runs parallel to the direction of the road. And it put separation between where the cars park and the bike lane. And they got all of that space, and it's about 18 inches. They got that space from reducing the width of the roadway lane. And so you can see the lane is much more narrower. And if you think about it, if you have a much narrower path to drive your vehicle through, you're going to feel like it's a little more difficult, and you're going to drive slower. And I've seen it firsthand when we go out to our driving range. There's areas of the course where the cones are a little bit wider, and then there's some areas where they're really narrow and people really slam on the brakes and they slow down. So we know that putting the road diet on and making those is a very good way to resolve those issues. Now, specific to Sycamore Valley School. So there is a section of road that's signed for Alta Vista Way and Holbrook. Holbrook is the actual street that the school is on. It goes up, and there's all that parking up there for the elementary school. So that section is designated, and it's been signed so that it is legal to park in the bike lane during that time. What we're seeing, and what we actually get complaints on, is that there are cyclists that are traveling westbound. So they're traveling in the same direction as the drop-off traffic, and they're trying to use the bike lane. And what they're forced to do is they're forced to ride in the travel lane where the cars are. And that creates a hazard for them because, let's face it, Camino Tasajara is one of our fastest roadways in town. It's where we get the most speeding complaints. It's where we get the highest speed of collisions, and it's where we get the most of our injury collisions. We may get the bulk of our collisions in our downtown area, but those are typically slow speed. And unless they involve a pedestrian or a cyclist, there's usually not injuries. Camino Tasajara, on the other hand, when we're having speeds of, the speed limit is 45, but we know from driving it and the radar surveys that we do out there that it's not unusual to see cars going 50, 60, and sometimes even 70 miles an hour. So we know it's a fast road. So we know there is a hazard, and we do receive complaints for people on that section of road. So I want to see what some of the ideas are, because I think we're getting some ideas. Okay, so John, let me do this. John, you're making the recommendation about the signs and the times. that is going to be our transportation department. So let me say this. So as it relates to the school, and some of the things that all of you may not see is we actually have a working group with the police officers. It's our traffic team, our transportation engineer with the town, that's Andy Dillard, and the school district. And what we're doing is we're going site to site to see if there's anything that we can do to calm traffic. And we're trying to think as wide as we can. And this is why, frankly, I'm asking for your opinion here, because it could be something as that doesn't relate to the traffic, but causes traffic, and that could be the bell schedule and the timing of it. It could be, are we maximizing the use of the off-road space, the space that is in the existing turnaround, in the horseshoe, on the campus? And I'll give you the good example that I want to highlight. If you've ever seen St. Isidore's at drop-off and pickup, now I'll tell you, the area on El Cerro and Lagonda, it's impacted. I mean, there's traffic there, but it would be much worse if St. Isidore's didn't do what they do, and they do a phenomenal job. What they do is they open up their campus, the blacktop area, and they actually bring cars all the way into the campus. So they're queuing probably 40 plus cars on their campus. And what that does is that provides relief from the streets. And I'm pretty confident that if they were not taking those steps, if they weren't doing that we would have a backup that went easy all the way to the freeway and frankly beyond. So they do an excellent job at making the best and maximizing the space that they have. All right, let me okay, so John says, or let me go to Catherine first. Oh, I'll take them in order so I don't mess this up. So Helena says, I have an idea for the traffic at Sycamore. It's too much and a little complicated to type out here, though. Can I? Yes, you can. And Helena, if you just send me a direct message, I'll check those after. I think I'm gonna have a couple of them here, but I would really be interested because we're meeting this week, next week specifically about this, and we are working with the school. I was talking with Ilana Samuels over at the district earlier today and yesterday about the issue. So we are wanting to jump in and work with that. And let me break in one thing too. I talked about engineering, education, and enforcement. So clearly we're seeing the enforcement. The education part is having us recommend to the school that they put information out. And the school is a great partner. And I think it was in October, that's when we started getting more of the complaints about the backup. October, they put something out saying, hey, don't park there, come up with some other solution. And so we do try to do that as well. So Catherine says, my recommendation would be to allow the use of the bike lane on Camino Task between Alta Vista and Wood Ranch, or at least a portion of that stretch near Alta Vista to be used as a waiting area for those cars. This would be an alignment with the stretch of road. Yeah, so what you're saying is, if I get you right, Catherine, what you're saying is we already allow it between Alta Vista and Holbrook, extend it for that section up the road and just make it longer. So that is a good suggestion, but I think we're trying to work on this group to see if there might be something that instead of queuing on the road and making those cyclists ride for an extended distance, if there's a way to queue them. And then Catherine, I actually like this. What you're putting on here, bikers would be allowed to use the sidewalk at these times. That's what Walnut Creek does along Ignacio Valley Road. So if you're a bike rider, you'll know that that's one of the things they do there. So John says the drop-off works fine, and the use of the bike lane for a short period of drop-off is the best solution. The bike lane should be extended, so it looks like it's the same recommendation. The majority of the kids that go to Sycamore come from the southern direction. Right turn on red would alleviate the extended backup. Okay, so I'm going to talk. So John, you bring up a good point, and one of my traffic officers said that too. They said, hey, there's a right turn on red issue there. And so I'm going to find that out. I'm not sure why that was done. I'm sure there was a good reason. I think it was probably to allow the people making the left turn to do that. But that has been brought up, and we're going to talk about that in our working group and see if we can't come up with a good solution. And then Catherine says, do a study of the traffic lights because the light will be red at Holbrook, but green at Alta Vista, and there's a major backup. All right, perfect. So Chief, I've been dropping my 3 kids off at Sycamore for 10 years and have never seen a bicyclist in the bike lane at that time. Okay. So John, I have not. This is why I ask you for the advice because you are going to be the expert there. What I'm saying and what spurs this is we do receive complaints from people regarding the backup. And so that is the issue. So John Walker says, we have the same problem at pickups at Vista Grande. They park in the bike lane. I think some of this could be resolved by narrowing the painted island and putting 3-foot posts like they do at the Bay Bridge. So John, that's interesting because we were talking about Vista Grande earlier today. And is there an issue? So we are working on those schools and we do want to make it better. So John, the issue is, John W is saying, please stop writing tickets until this is resolved. John, we'll talk about that, but I don't know that we'll give grace periods on this as we go. But I can't authorize people to violate the law. It would be the same as if you said, can you allow us just to speed going down Comunidad Sahara because I need to get to work faster. I can't. We have it. There are other solutions out there. There are other places to park and walk the kids in. There's neighborhoods with back entrances, and I'm not saying that there's a perfect solution here, but me authorizing or allowing people to violate a law that creates a hazard isn't the acceptable solution. So we need to hammer out a solution, and it isn't to continue to allow people to violate the law. So Catherine says, in the meantime, as someone who does drive to Sycamore, please tell me where I should be waiting if the bike lane on Alta Vista and Holbrook is backed up. Should I wait in the rightmost lane even if the light is green? So Catherine, I would say that you should continue straight and find another route that doesn't block the road. Park somewhere close by, walk in, but in no way should we be blocking the traffic. And I know that's not a popular answer. And frankly, throw the criticism my way and I'll accept it and I'll take it. We are going to work towards a solution on this. We're going to work hard with the school. But what we can't do is impact an entire roadway because we don't have a satisfactory solution for the campus side of things. So Catherine, John W, there's two John W's. So John Walker and John W. And I apologize. I just can't pronounce your name. We're going to work on a solution. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with our traffic officers. We don't work one area all the time, and we have to rotate our resources. So we are going to rotate our resources. And as far as the schools go, I know Vista Grande is a hot topic too, especially during the pickup. But we're going to work on the Sycamore problem. We're going to make sure that we get some solution in place. So we will exercise grace and patience, and I'm just asking the same of all of you. All right. So Shayna says, thank you. And then John says, what will happen if cars stop in the number 1 lane and the bike lane frees up from Alta Vista to Holbrook? Now cars will impede to Sahara, and there will be 1 lane through traffic until you pass the school. Well, John, again, not the popular answer, and I understand that. You're not allowed to just park on Comunidad Sahara either, right? That isn't the solution. The problem is we're being impacted by the school drop-off. There's, if you look back, many of the schools were originally designed, especially the ones in my neighborhood, for kids to walk, bike. I mean, the transportation plan for those schools was different. If you look at like Vista Grande, John Baldwin, Green Valley, a lot of these schools, they have very short on-campus lanes with which to drive cars because traditionally that's not how it was done. Times have changed, people have changed, and we're all free to do what we want, but we should recognize that there is an impact. We are trying to adapt to it, so I get that. But blocking traffic on Comunidad Sahara or blocking the bike lane isn't the solution. So I do understand that. All right. So we're going to work on that. Certainly, we'll keep everyone updated. We will communicate on our channel here as well. We'll also communicate with the school and through the school. So you should expect to get communication from the school. I'll as soon as I'm done here, I think there should be some DMs waiting for me, so I want to respond to those. And then I'm going to get off and I'm going to talk to the district PIO and see if we can't work on this and make sure that you all are getting the information that you need. So Helena is doing the Alan Shields way of doing it. In the meantime, while the solution is worked out, my husband left this morning at 7:30 a.m. to drop off the kids and bypassed all the traffic. So that's a creative solution. I know it doesn't work for everybody. My solution, frankly, because I know John Baldwin was impacted, was, and my kids are kind of like me. They're a little bit strange and they like to run and do all this. I would just run my kids to school, and we would do that, and we'd get there early, and I would head in the back way. And frankly, it was good for me because I avoided all that traffic. And I get it. I'm only a mile from school, so it was relatively close. So I get it. So, uh, John, the fact that you wrote a funny joke in there, I appreciate it. I appreciate that you have a sense of humor in this. The hardest part about issuing tickets, and it probably is why I never work traffic. The hardest part about issuing tickets is we're usually issuing them to very good people, right? And I think that especially in Danville, all of us parents, all of us people, we're trying to do the best we can, and we look at a set of circumstances or problems, and we come up with the best solution. Right now, I think as a system, we're kind of failing, and so we're going to work on that. So, John, I really do appreciate you having a sense of humor. It's good to see that. Okay, and then Claire says, you sent me an email. Perfect. Claire, thank you. If you have a complaint like that, I want to make sure I speak with you. All right, looks like that is all I've got for the comments. And I'm going to apologize. The setup is a little different, so I'm viewing these on my iPad, which means it scrolls a little bit different. Sue, I did catch yours that you had your wallet stolen out of your purse in Starbucks. So Starbucks. So this literally happens anywhere and everywhere. We've seen it in cars where you go to, park your cart and they'll reach into your car. We've seen it at the gas station. You're pumping gas, someone's going in the passenger side of your car and taking your purse out. They're very good at what they do. They practice this. This is their job, so to speak, and they're good. So to everyone that tuned in tonight, I really appreciate you. I appreciate yeah, have a great night and go Warriors is right. Our vice mayor was in here earlier with her Warriors gear on. I got excited because I thought she was going to the game, and she said basically the same thing, and I would say is, I can't afford to go to the game. I'm watching it on TV. So yeah, let's go Warriors. Let's get them to close this out and come back from that 0-2 start. All right, Danville, this has been great. I appreciate everyone for hanging out with us. We'll be back next Wednesday night, and if you have questions, you can always you can always hit me directly via email. You can call me. Very accessible. I do try to return all my calls and all that as quickly as I can, but sometimes the volume does kick up. But I appreciate all of you tuning in, and thank you, and have a good night.